Hey YouTube, welcome back. I've got another build here for you. This is the result of the Paladin weekend race that Vision GL puts on. The 3 skills that we had to pick from were all 3 throwing skills. So we have Shield Throw, Javelin, and Hammer Throw. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to play, but I did know that I did not want to play a build that I've already played in the past. So, from the get-go, we wanted to try to build a Shield Throw character that procs Smite using the Smite idols, and then also use Devotion. So we would have some kind of like mana aspect, mana, percent mana, maybe attunement as well on our prefixes and our gear in order to get a bunch of mana, guzzle that mana using a instant cast Sigil of Hope, and then, turn that into damage by proccing Smite off of Shield Throw. We got to 286 waves in the arena. We could have gotten a little bit more. We had some technical difficulties. My mouse was acting funny. And the way that we ended up dying was around 250 waves or so on a subsequent run in the arena, where we volatile reversaled into some necrotic damage over time. So this character has tons of armor, tons of block chance, but the hardest thing to mitigate in last Epoch is damage over time, and we got annihilated by damage over time. This build, this build went through a couple of variations as we built it. Sometimes we were Hammer Throw, we tried out Javelin, we tried out Enra's technique, Hammer Throw, we tried out a bunch of things. But for the arena push itself, we were always doing Shield Throw. Because Shield Throw has the identity of being extraordinarily tanky, because with just a few points invested, you can cap your armor at 83, 82%, something like that. And having 20,000 armor while you're doing arena feels very, very good, unless you get killed by damage over time like I did. So let's walk through the build a little bit, and I'll tell you what decisions we made. I've been looking through other builds that I found on YouTube, things that I found on Reddit and the forums, and it seems like this build overall is pretty cookie cutter, not too much special stuff going on here, but I can walk you through the ideas and specifically maybe some of the alternatives that we had been trying in other scenarios. So I think the first thing is, instead of Shield Throw, we did sometimes try out Javelin, which is cool, but I don't think it does anything better for us. If our goal is to proc a spell damage, crit, smite as often as possible, then Javelin is not the highest damaging thing we can do. We could do a Siege Barrage and then add the extra Javelins here, which is really good for single target. But when you're in the arena, you don't really care about single target. You just want to clear as much stuff on the screen as you can. We tried Hammer Throws for a bit. The reason that I ended up not using Hammer Throw is, first of all, I've done Hammer Throw before. I've done another build here on YouTube, like a Devotion Smite Hammered in. It's one of the best builds I've ever played. I really, really like that build. Crits the dummy for 500,000 damage. But one of the variations that we tried for Hammer Throw for this tournament is we tried out using Enra's technique. So Enra's technique has hit damage, crit multi, hit damage, base crit, a bunch of things that I was going to ignore. So you might ask yourself, why would you do a spell damage, smite procking Hammer Throw with Enra's technique instead of just doing the normal orbit stuff? So the normal orbit stuff is really good for single target damage, because it hits multiple times while it spins around your character. You can wind it up and then go to a boss, or then dash into a monster. The advantage of Enra's technique, if you chose to use that as a replacement for Shield Throw here, is that it off-screens really, really hard. So instead of needing all the points up here for changing the behavior, get the minus mana cost, get these things, instead of that, you get to spec 1 point into Enra's technique. You have less single target damage, probably even less than Shield Throw, if I'm honest with you. But you get to put your points in other places. So you get to put all 5 points into attack speed and rapid throw. You get to put all 5 points into Shattering Force. You can put all 5 points into Guardian Zeal, or all 3 points into Guardian Zeal as well. And it's really comfy for off-screening everything, because your hammers are going to travel off-screen themselves, and if they proc Smite, your Smite is also going to proc the Lightning Storm and have the extra chains that go around there. It's very, very strong in terms of AoE clear. I don't think we need that much AoE clear, and I prefer to have the Shield Throw capping our armor so that we have 20,000 armor. I think that's more valuable for me, but honorable shout out to Enra's technique, because it was an interesting way of playing this build that I wouldn't have considered before. So let's talk about the skills themselves. Shield Throw, I think there's a tiny variation that we made on this that you might not see in other places. It seems like the majority of Shield Throw builds, when they're proccing Smite, will spec 5 points into Magma Rage. So for me, the Shield Throw damage per second, 2,000 damage here, it goes up I guess, what was it, the damage here? Yes. So my tooltip is 1280 per second on the lava burst. If I spec all my points into this, it goes to like 1800. So it gives you a tiny bit of damage. But, I mean, we're talking about smites that are hitting for 41,000. Or maybe if I guzzle some of my mana real quick, because we're a devotion build. Let's see, can I guzzle mana in any faster way? Let's see if we can lower this real quick. We were at 41,000 a second ago. And if we're negative mana, we're at 117,000. So, yeah, this only procs 30-ish% of the time. So maybe you can cut that in thirds. But shield throw, speccing into these more damage nodes over here, for me, it didn't seem particularly worthwhile. Because the devotion scales so hard, and this doesn't. So instead of putting 5 points here, I put 5 points on the bottom right, which is this Hemrin's technique, which is +2 ricochets, which is actually just +1 ricochet. Because our ricochets get cut in half by this node over here. So I think this is worthwhile. It also gives you more flat armor. It also gives you more flat armor, I guess. So you're stealing things and it gives you armor. Then you also get armor off of this. So this brought me up from like 75% or so armor. And then with these 5 extra nodes here, it brings me up to like 82% armor. So that's 7% additional armor on top. I think is more worthwhile. And then it also gives you +1 chain, and chains can proc smites and all that good stuff. So I opted into this, and I felt like this was a better choice than putting 5 points in Magma Rage. For smite, nothing too fancy going on here. We have not the direct cast smite nodes. We're avoiding these because we're never actually casting smite, and in fact, it's never even on our bar. We have 5 points into more damage, 5 points into take less sacrifice health cost, 5 points into base crit, and then 2 into multi, and then 2, 1, 1, just to get the extra bolts. And remember, like these kind of overlap, so anytime that you're looking for single target damage, the biggest thing that you can do for single target damage is just position better, stand in a different spot, and try to get your boss monster next to anything else, because that's going to like quadruple your damage. It's huge. The 5 points down here into crit, I think you want all 5 of these. I have a +3 smite idol on my, I guess +3 smite relic. My last 3 points were 2 points into deep impact and 1 point into conviction here. Having all 10 base crit points here puts me at about 70 crit chance. If I had crit chance on my gear in more places, I could get up to like maybe 75, maybe like 78 critical strike chance. Going much higher than that, I don't think is going to be worthwhile, because it's going to take more investment than the points, or I guess it's going to take more investment than what you have access to. So just being happy with like 75 to 78% crit chance for lightning skills, for smite specifically, I think is what you want. For volatile reversal, this thing is insane, and I can't imagine not including it in a build like this. So we're not a damage over time build, so we're not coming up here, but the rest of this should look very common. We have extra points, so we are speccing into the travel further back in time, and because we're a devotion build, we don't want to have mana, so we get to take this cooldown node as well. So as I'm standing still, you can see that my increased throwing attack speed is 84%. If I click my Holy Aura, you see it goes up to 116, because Holy Aura gives throwing attack speed. We'll get there in a second. But my base is 84, and if we pop this, 84 to 114, and it stacks. So 84 to 114 to 144. And then as I get more cooldown, as I kill monsters and stuff, this will go even higher. Basically, my attack speed was about 224% while killing normal monsters. The highest that I ever saw it go, if it like lined up perfectly with my Holy Aura and a bunch of cooldowns and killing monsters, was over 300%. So that's the kind of numbers that you expect when you're using Volatile Reversal in this way. Next up, let's go Holy Aura, because I just mentioned it. Holy Aura, we have all the throwing attack speed here, and some throwing attack speed here as well. Couple nodes for endurance and elemental resistance, and then 1, 2, 3 into poison resistance and some extra cleanse every once in a while. I basically numlocked Holy Aura. Even if I weren't a devotion build, even if I didn't have that mana thing going on, I would probably still numlock Holy Aura. I think it's a nice way to free up the RAM of your mind by not worrying about it. If you didn't want to take these 3 points here, I would just go into critical strike chance on the true strike node. Last is Sigils of Hope. And I think Sigils is pretty generic looking stuff. We're using a shield, so we take the shield nodes here. We always take +1 because it's very, very good. It would be, I guess it would take a strange set of circumstances for us not to take the tetragram node, but basically all of my Sigils of Hope builds take these nodes as well. We do have Sigils on Kill, just to make my life nice and easy. You could drop 1 point, 1 point, and go extra armor, but we have capped armor already, so it's not necessary. And the strangest thing that you'll see on Sigils of Hope is coming over to the left side, we have the instant cast. The reason that we have instant cast is while we're walking around, while we're killing things, I can basically numlock, or for me, because I don't have numlock on my keyboard, I can just hold down my R button, and you see that my mana continues to get guzzled like this. So my maximum DPS is just holding down Q, W, R, and right click, and hoping that nothing kills me. So if I'm in a safe spot, I can do this for single target. If I need to avoid poison on the ground, maybe I can't do this. If I need to avoid some other kind of effect, maybe I can't. But strictly speaking, this is probably about the highest DPS that I can get just by standing still here. So it looks like we're critting for about 400k when things line up. Let's do this for one more second here. 500k, sure. But pretty inconsistent in the grand scheme of things. Because you need to hit, you need to also proc one of your smite idols, and then the smite that happens also needs to crit. So there's a little disparity, or what's the word for it? There's a little discrepancy in the single target, but the clear speed feels incredible. So let's talk about the mastery real quick. Again, this should be pretty straightforward. We have 5 points in Void Knight just to give us Volatile Reversal. We also have 5 points in Forge Guard just to give us some shield throw here. We have a handful of points here, and then over on the far right, we also have Axe Thrower. Axe Thrower, I added these nodes around level 90 or so. I don't think they're great, but they're good enough, and they're better than like 5 or 7% increased damage. I think they're worth having, but they're definitely not a priority for early on. Having another throw that happens so that it can proc another smite is a nice thing to have here. For Paladin, I've got a couple of weird 1-pointers here as you take a look. So having 1 point in a 2-minute mana regeneration is not necessary. I just wanted to make sure that I had over 400 mana because that was a benchmark that I was using in my brain. What's important is adaptive damage while holding a shield. Excuse me. And then adaptive damage while holding a shield as well. So these nodes give us tons of flat to go along with devotion. That makes us juice up our smite damage. These nodes in the middle are just kind of flexible. Health, endurance, resistance, necrotic resistance, ally res here, whatever you need. But I would put 8 points into conviction for the lightning damage and lightning penetration. It's a great place to be for everyone. I have 1 point just in case we go low on health. We get to proc this haste. I think this is cute. Kind of like it. If we need more armor or more crit avoid, we can fill some points in here just to make the rest of our gearing easier overall. We absolutely need 10 points into Holy Precision. This is kind of like the reason to play the build. We get tons of crit multi and lightning spell critical strike chance out of this. I guess no, it's actually increased spell critical. It's not only for lightning skills. Ooh. But the crit multi only applies to lightning skills. So we're happy to be taking this. 8 points into Revan's Duality, health, damage, mana because we're devotion, we want more mana, so we can guzzle it, and then a couple flexible points on the very far right side for movement speed. For the gearing, so if you include a devotion in a build like this, I think the reason for putting this in the build is that if you don't have devotion, you don't have particularly good prefixes to put on your gear. If you weren't a devotion build, let's say everything else on the build was the same, but you're not using devotion. That means that your prefixes could be attunement, which is only 4% increased damage per point. It's pretty lackluster. And then the other thing would be armor shred effect. So let's see, armor shred effect. If you were playing hammer throw, you would have some armor shred built into your character. So then you could have armor shred and armor shred effect. Some of these suffixes on these idols here have chance to shred armor on hit throwing attacks. Or you could even craft chance to shred armor on hit on your gloves, for example. Armor shred effect is probably the best prefix you have access to if you're not playing a devotion build. If you are playing a devotion build, your prefixes get so much better. Your flat mana prefix becomes very valuable because the more mana you guzzle, the more adaptive spell damage with smite you get. And then attunement, instead of being only 4% increased damage, well, it's 4% increased damage, and also it gives you flat mana so that you could have a bigger mana pool. Remember, within our mastery itself, we also have this Reverence of Duality, so we already have % increased mana, which means that building more % increased mana is not too valuable for us, but we would like to do something like maybe a sealed prefix for armor shred effect would be nice to have on this body armor here, or maybe a sealed prefix here for armor shred effect, or a sealed prefix for volatile reversal, so that we can click on more of those juicy nodes for volatile reversal. Those are the kinds of things that you're looking for on your helmet and on your body armor. For the relic, you're looking for things like +3 smite. It's far and away the most important thing for you. So everything else is fluff, but +3 smite is the most important. Crit multi, spell crit, mana, spell damage, lightning damage, all those kinds of things are about the same. But in a short-term race like this, just having +3 smite, slap it in, it's going to be by far the most return for your investment. For the shields, we just have generically as defensive as we can get. We'd like to have a Bastion of Honor, but we didn't get one, unfortunately. For the gloves, we are looking for throwing attack speed, first and foremost. If we can get exalted throwing attack speed, that's what we want. Hybrid life would be excellent. Chance to shred armor and hit. If you wanted to use a unique item for your relic, then you wouldn't be able to put frailty on it, unless it was legendary, right? So, bearing in mind that we have a unique item for our amulet, and potentially a unique item if you have a storm carved testament, for example. Bearing in mind that we might want to use a unique item for those 2 slots, your gloves might want a sealed affix on them. So you could have hybrid life and armor shred as suffix, and then maybe a sealed 3rd suffix of frailty on hit. So maybe like tier 5 hybrid, maybe like a tier 1 or tier 2 of one of those chance to apply something on hit, and then like a tier 5 of the other chance to apply something on hit is the kind of thing you're looking for your glove slot here. For the rings, we want to make sure that our shield throw goes down to a 0 mana cost. So if I take this off, we have a 3 mana cost, and bearing in mind we also have 5 points into the minus mana cost of polished steel here. So we need at least one -3 here. We don't need a -3 in both places, but if you had a -3 in both places, maybe you can spec out of one of these nodes, but then you still have a mana cost, so you can play with that. But for me, I had 5 points into polished steel, and then one -3 mana cost somewhere. For our blessings, someone just reminded me about this, we have a couple blessings that really matter a lot to us. So we don't have any source of leech by default. So we could try to rely on healing effect if we wanted to just stand in the AoE of our smites as they're happening, but we don't want to rely on that. So for our blessings, we have one that is from Raye, the 4.4 spell damage leeches health. I think this is much better than trying to get like throwing damage leeches health. My throwing damage is 2,000, and my every smite proc is like hundreds of thousands of damage. So for us, spell damage leeches health is S tier. For the Lagan blessing, you can get chance to shred lightning on hits. You can get plus mana. You can get shock chance. I think those are about the only things that you would look for. And then ideally, I'm pretty sure that chance to shred lightning resistance on hit is the best. It stacks with shock. Remember, shock also lowers enemies' resistance, and having both of these things happening at the same time is really good because the majority of our build is all lightning damage, disregarding the spell proc from shield throw. Then we have crit avoid. Ideally on a paladin, you would have plus to all resistances. I chose this because it was there, and it allowed me to do things like not use a Solarum plate for my chest piece, because I made this thing instead, and it happens not to have crit avoidance on it. The other blessings, if we got a Bastion, we would have wanted block effect. Even though we don't have a Bastion, block effect is still very, very good for us. So you can see, just standing still, we're at a 1900, which is 49% damage mitigation. If I load up some of my sigils real quick, you see that it pops up to 51%. If we didn't have this, we would drop down to about 1500 block effectiveness, which I'm not sure exactly what the number would be, but I think this is a better return on our investment than, physical resistance or cold resistance or something like that. So even without a Bastion, the block effect here is very, very nice. For the blessing from Spirits of Fire, I think flat armor is fine. We get a ton of flat armor already, but if you don't have frailty, you could use this blessing for frailty. If you don't have endurance, you could use this blessing for endurance. But this is just something that we got while doing our first pass through of the unempowered monoliths, and it was good enough. So we just never fixed it. So the most important ones for you are probably just like these two, like maybe offensively, Lagan, defensively getting spell leech, and then some kind of like block effect, assuming that hopefully you have a Bastion when you're playing a build like this. So I think that about does it for the character. If you have any questions about it or comparisons for how you played it or how maybe how I played it here, you can always drop by Twitch at twitch.tv/PierreThePig. You can also leave questions in the comment section of this video here. I will do my best to address those and make sure that we're all on the same page. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time.